To clean up various wall conditions, Revit has a command called the wall joins command, which allows you to manipulate which material is going to clean up with other materials inside of a wall. To illustrate this, we're going to start by talking about the least complicated example and then move to the most complicated example of this kind of cleanup. We're going to begin by zooming in here to the middle two walls that are available to us. Currently, both of these walls are joining or are cleaning up with this wall right here. We can see that if we select on the wall, click and hold our mouse button down, and then drag it forward or drag it back, these walls will continue to clean up with the wall. The first thing I want to show is this option right over here. If we click on this wall, next, move up to the Wall Joins tool, which shows up underneath Modify Walls tab, right above the word Geometry, Wall Joins. Click where this big box is at. Wherever you have two walls come together, this big box will always show up as long as you're in the Wall Joins command. You can usually figure out which wall it is that it's going to be touching, like in this case, it's going to be affecting this wall combination that's right here in the middle of the box. Click right where that wall is at, and the first thing you'll see is that this line goes through it. And what this means is that these two walls are butting together. And you have a couple of different options here. One option is where it says Display, it says Use View Settings. Then above that, you can either have it clean the join, which will make it look exactly like this wall over here, or you can tell it Don't Clean the Join. And if you choose Don't Clean the Join off of the list, and then click out here in the space, you'll see that it's no longer cleaning up that material combination where these two walls hit each other. If I hit Escape a couple times on the keyboard in order to get out of the command, the next thing I'm going to do is move over here to this wall, which is right next to it. There's another way to get this exact same condition that we're seeing here. Or at least it looks like that exact same condition. If you select on the wall, you can then right-click where this little dot is at, and you can tell it to disallow join. When you do that, this wall will no longer be joined officially with that wall right there. And you can click on this dot, and you can pull it back, and then pull it forward again, and when it's lined up, you'll get the exact same look as over here. But there is a rather big difference. The Wall Joins tool, which we used over here, is a graphic cleanup. The Disallow Join is more of a physical cleanup. The difference between those two things is if you select on this wall and now pull it out, notice how this wall continues to go up with it, but this wall no longer does. The reason behind it is that the wall cleanup has still told this to allow the join between this wall and this wall. On the other hand, we told this wall to disallow the join with this wall. So it will no longer clean itself up, which means it'll also no longer stretch and adjust if this wall here should move. So by selecting on that wall and then coming into the Wall Joins tool, we're able to create this condition here, which is going to be considered, and I'll just click right there, Display and Don't Clean the Join. If we wanted it to clean up again, we could always just select on Clean Join, and from there on out, it would clean itself up again. Using the same commands, I'm going to move over here, and then I'm going to select on this intersection. When we do, we automatically saw this line begin to show up over here. These two walls are still butted against each other. And there's a button here that says Next that's now available. If we select on that, you'll start to notice that there's some difference in the lines as it moves from up and down to side to side. Well, the reality of it is that that's not going to change too much about the way that this wall is currently cleaning up. There's one other thing that I want to do before getting too far, and that is to come up here to the View tab and then turn on Thin Lines so that we can see this extra little layer of material here on the outside of the wall. If we click back on here again and then click on Next, we'll see that outer material is cleaning up differently. So as a result of this, we can pick which variation do we want to have. If we like this variation, and most likely this would be the variation that in real life we would pick, we would just click out here, hit Escape a couple times on the keyboard, and we'd get out of the command. But we had another option available to us, and I just wanted to point that option out. If we click right here, the other option is called Miter, and it will miter the two ends together. By the way, the miter tool, the reason why I tend to use it a little bit more often than probably most people do, is I found that if you have two walls that are basically the same type and you want them to come together and clean up correctly and appropriately, sometimes it's easier to use miter than it is butt. For whatever reason, miter just cleans up really well with other kinds of wall types. So if you ever get a wall condition where you have two walls coming together at an intersection and you just can't seem to make it look right, try miter. It might clean that condition up. Now, the next spot that I want to try is out here, and this is the most complex condition that we have. If we click out here, we have three different options, but there's also an option here called square off. Well, if I use square off, notice how it now squares off here at the end. If I click on the next button, it'll sort of square off going in this direction. Most likely in this case, I'll probably just leave it like this and have it square off there at the end. There's a property in here that we need to know about. The reason why we can cycle through these different properties here, and the reason why certain materials die and stop, and they never get the option whenever you click on next, is because of certain settings inside of the wall. Hit escape a couple times first on the keyboard, and now select on the wall. I can now go into edit type, and then if I go to edit structure of that wall, over here there's an option called function. Now in the function of the wall, there's some numbers. If we click in here and then click the little arrow next to it, we can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A 1 is considered the hardest thing. Nothing else goes through a 1. 5 would be considered the lowest priority or the weakest priority. Everything else goes through a 5. So if a 4 hits a 3, it has to stop. If a 5 hits a 2, it has to stop. If a 2 hits a 1, the 2 has to stop. So nothing else goes through a 1. And everything goes through a 5. And that's exactly what we've been looking at down here, where we've had the structure being a 1. And because of that, I'm just going to click on OK to get out of this dialog box. Everything that's been hitting this structure right here is just stopping because its only option is to stop. Where this cleanup takes place, when we select on the wall and then come up here to the wall joins tool, is if you have two numbers that are basically the same, like 2 4s, 2 3s, 2 5s. By using the wall joins tool, it will cycle through. Do you want this 5 to pass through this 5? Do you want this 4 to pass through this 4? As a result of that, you just cycle through the different combinations of materials that can go by one another. So the wall joins tool has a variety of different functions. It controls the way that the materials join with one another. It controls the graphic display of how these materials are going to join with one another. And it controls the order by which these things will join with one another. So if you ever need to have your walls cleaned up in a very specific way, try using the wall joins tool. The majority of the time, it will help you with cleaning up your different wall situations.